Alright, so the next thing we want to do is actually analyze what we're about to rig. So I'm going to go up here to the X-ray joints button, and this is the character's rig itself. If we expand this window, we can see there's a root, and then there's the actual mesh here. So we can expand this too by holding Shift and hitting the plus, and you can see, all the naming conventions. Essentially, it's the same as in Unreal itself. And if we were to move some of these parts, we can see where it's supposed to move. So what we want to do is basically build a controller system for this. The only thing is there's also these IK handles. So there's an IK for the right hand and then one for the left hand. And then we have IK for the feet, and that's just so we can socket stuff onto his feet as well. Right, so we probably won't want to rig that as much, but we do want to add some controllers in for this character. Okay, so let's start by dropping in some control objects, and then we'll start to actually create it. So I'm going to go over here to the curved surfaces window, and I'm going to go to the circle. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to press the button. It's going to make a little circle really far down, so I'm going to hit R and just drag it up, make it a little bit bigger. And how I typically like to work here is I start from the spine and work my way up, and then I'll do things like the arms and the legs and all that other stuff. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to move it straight up, and I'm going to temporarily turn off the mesh, but what I want to do is snap it to the joints here. Because this is so low res, this geometry is fairly low res, it's pretty easy to snap. So in the move mode with W, you tap W or in move mode, I'm going to press and hold V, and I'm going to drag from the center, left click and drag, and pop it into the bones there. Now, depending on your resolution, it might be harder to actually do that. So if you're new to this, you might want to turn off your geometry first. So you can go Show, turn off polygons. Now I'm going to hold V down, pull that center part, and snap it right to the hip. Right, so this would be the hip bone in this case, and you can see that this controls the whole hip. This is like the thigh, right? So this would be the hip. I'm going to turn polygons back on, and I want to make sure that this is good. And it's not too bad. I think that'll work for what we need it to do. I'm going to grab this now, and I'm going to hit Control A to bring up the attribute editor. And in the attribute editor, I'm going to go to Object Display, down to Drawing Overrides. And then I'm going to turn on Enable Overrides, and I'm going to switch this color. Right now we got a bunch of colors here, but if we want to be more specific, we can hit this little color drop down and switch to RGB. Now I can hit this little swatch and change to any color I want, so I'll just make it yellow for now. Let's give this a name. I'm going to go back to the channel box, and I'm going to call this hips underscore CTRL underscore 01. Now we also got to make sure that we're freezing transformations and deleting the history. So I'm going to go up here to Modify, with the object selected, Modify, Freeze Transformations. Then Edit, Delete by Type History. And that just cleans up our work area here, so it's when we zero out the character later, zero that out, it'll pop back to where his hips are. Okay, so let's do the same for the next two areas here. I'm going to hit Control D, then I'm going to hold V and move it to the first spine bone. Scale that down a little bit, and let's give it a rename. So I'm going to call this Spine Control 01. And again, we got to do the same thing. Modify, freeze transformations. You'll notice it copies the color. I'm going to go back to move mode with W, and I'm going to hit Control D, and I'm going to hold V down and snap it to spine 2. Let's give it a little scale. So I'm going to hit R and drag it out, scale it a little bit. And the nice thing is it automatically renames the last number here when you duplicate it. So the next one will be 03. Okay. So modify freeze transformations. Okay, now the chest is a little bit different. I'm going to hit Control D, snap it again by holding V down, moving. And if you're having trouble, try changing your camera, and you should be able to get it right on the money. There we go. There. That should be good. Awesome. And I'm going to scale this out. Okay, it's not too bad, but for the, I'm just going to scale it in a little bit. I think that looks pretty good, but for the hips, you may, or sorry, for the chest, you may want to change where this is. For example, you might want the icon for this to be a little bit higher, right? Or you may want to go to your right-click, Control Vertex, and you may want to change the shape a little bit, and then go back to object mode. And you could totally use this as your chest shape. Maybe scale it in a little bit, right? The only thing with this is, if this is your goal, you can keep it in the same spot, but you got to make sure that that center point snaps to that chest joint. So I'm going to hold D and V. I'm just going to drag. So when you hold D down, it's moving your center point, right? And when you hold V, it snaps the object, right? So if you hold D to move your center and V, you're snapping your center point now. I'm going to snap my center point. Again, change my camera angle. There it is. Snap my center point right to my chest bone. Yeah, it looks pretty good. This is what it looks like with X-ray off. X-ray back on. Alright, so let's do one for the hand here. We're going to do an IK control rig to start, and then we'll probably do an FK switch in here too. So I'm going to get a little circle here, make it a little bigger. I'm going to hold V down and snap it to the wrist. Let's freeze transformations and delete the history. And I'm going to call this left L underscore hand CTRL underscore 01. Control A, and I'm going to enable overrides again.